All right, guys, so we're going to go into part 2 of our chapter 7.1 notes. So please make sure that you have a notebook in front of you and you're taking all these notes. So our new concept, before we were multiplying exponents with bases and adding the exponents. Now we're going to have just one base to a power. So, for example, you could have x squared, that is x to the power of 2. You could have b to the fourth, and that is b to the power of 4. So here we're going to have whatever our base is to a number, and that number is going to be to another number. So this p right here is not attached to any variable. It's just it's raising a power to a power. So in the case where you're raising a power to a power, you have to multiply the exponents together. So just two examples here. B to the third to the power of 5, right? So there's no base next to this 5, so that's how we know we have to multiply these two exponents together. Before, we had b to the third times b to the 5, and we were adding the exponents, but now we have b to the third to the power of 5 with nothing attached to this 5. So that's how we know, that's our key here, that we have to multiply. So you have b to the 3 times 5, which becomes b to the 15th. Another example, g to the 6th to the power of 7. So that's when you multiply your 6 and 7 because there's nothing attached to the 7. So g to the 6 times 7 becomes g to the 42. So I'd like you guys to just take a second, copy this down into your notebooks, pause if you need to. So here are a few examples I'd love you guys to write down, and then you're going to have 2 to try on your own. So our first example of here is a to the 2nd to the power of 4. This is very similar to our examples that we just looked at. So my first step is that I have to multiply my two exponents together. And what that's going to look like is a to the 2nd to the power of 4 is going to become a to the 2 times 4, which is going to become a to the 8th. And that right here is my final answer. For this one, all of these numbers and variables, so 2ab, these are all to the 1. A to the 1, B to the 1. Just because there's no number there, that's how we know. So I have to take this power of 7 and I have to distribute it to each one of my coefficients and my variables. So 2 to the 7th, a to the 7th, and b to the 7th. So this is our first step. Distribute the exponents to each number and variable. So what that's going to look like is 2ab to the power of 7 is going to be 2 to the 7th times a to the 7th times b to the 7th. That 7 is going to attach itself to each one of your coefficients and each one of your variables. Now remember, 2 to the 7th is not 14. 2 to the 7th is 2 multiplied by itself 7 times. So 2 times 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 2. So that's going to get us 128. A to the 7th, B to the 7th. Same thing in this example here. We have to distribute that 3 to my coefficient, to my variable, and to my y. Notice my x already has an exponent to it, so that means we have to multiply the 2 and 3 when I distribute. So we're going to distribute the exponents to each number and variable. So this becomes 2 to the 3rd times x to the 2 times 3 times y to the 3rd. Remember, 2 to the 3rd is 2 times 2 times 2, so we get 8. X to the 2 times 3 is going to become x to the 6, and y to the 3rd is just going to say y to the 3rd. Take a second, make sure you copy these examples down in your notebooks because they're going to be very helpful. So here we have our first example. I want you to simplify 2 to the 3rd power to the power of 3 to the power of 2. So you're going to have to multiply all these exponents together and apply it to your 2. So take a second and try that, and once you think you have the answer, put it into your Edpuzzle. So the answer you should have guessed correctly was D, and this is why. We have to multiply the exponents together while keeping the base. So we're going to have 2 to the 3 times 3 times 2, because all these exponents right here are technically being multiplied. So by multiplying these numbers, 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 becomes 18. Keeping my base, I have 2 to the 18th, which does not mean 2 times 18. It means 2 times itself 18 times, which gets me 262,144. Try our second example now that you've seen the first, and once you have your answer, submit it into Edpuzzle. The answer that you should have gotten was C. You have to multiply your exponents together while keeping the base. So you're going to have 4 to the 2 times 2 times 3. When you multiply 2 times 2 times 3, you get 2 times 2, which is 4, times 3, which is 12. And then you get 4 to the 12th, which is 16,777,216. So super quick notes today. You're going to be getting some practice problems on these when we come back from our long weekend. And then we'll meet again to go over them. If you're having any trouble with the practice problems, you are welcome to either email me or direct message me on Google Hangouts.